Hello, I'm Jerry Lintner, and this is State of the Town, a monthly show when we sit with our First Selectman Mary Glassman and get brought up to date on the state of the town. So Mary, thank you, and how is the state of the town?
Excellent. The state of Simsbury is excellent. And thank you, Jerry, for hosting today, and thank you, SCTV, for providing the studio. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and so I'll make the plea once again. Get up, do your part. More volunteers, more volunteers. You'll love it here, especially some, I was going to say some of you young kids in high school, you get exposed to technical stuff if you're at all interested in media, graphics, great start. If you're old and gray like me and you want to keep your mind fresh and learn something new, give it a try. And speaking of volunteering, I am volunteering to help out the town of Simsbury.
Well, thank you, Jerry.
And I don't know how appropriate it is, but I want to do my part.
Is this a surprise?
Here.
Oh, thank you.
You want
This
to
is
talk
excellent. I'm sure everyone in town knows what this is for. This is salt, and it's for our roads because we are experiencing a salt shortage in Connecticut, and that was very thoughtful of you. It will go to use tonight as we're expecting another storm.
Okay,
So
well
thank
then
you very
I'm
much.
wondering if I should, just leave it with you, or should we all just go out and sprinkle salt in the part of the road that's in front of our house?
Well, not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. Hold on. But that's very thoughtful. The state of the town is great. We're hopefully getting through the last part of winter, and as you know, we had a very difficult winter, and there's been a salt shortage here in Simsbury. We're very proactive. Our Public Works Director, Tom Roy, and his staff did a great job of planning ahead. So we actually had stockpiled some of our salt, and we're mixing it with some of the sand to make it work longer.
Yeah.
So we're actually in very good shape here in Simsbury. But we've had some very difficult winter this year because the rain and the ice, with our pre-application, washed away the salt, which required another application. So we hope to see the end to winter shortly, and we're all focused on spring now.
Yes, I think that privately, though, people like snow melt. Stores were out of snow melt, and people had run out of them. So
it's really a problem. I mean, we're really fortunate for a couple reasons. One, that we saw this shortage coming, and we worked to make sure our supplies were at their top levels. And secondly, the town of Simsbury has a sand pit. And we used to, those of us who have lived in town, remember the days when we used to put sand down. And we found that the salt works better to prevent the ice from forming, and is also easier on cleanup and environmentally. But we do have the option to use salt, to use sand, and we have unlimited supplies of that. So we're in very good shape to keep our roads clear and our residents safe. So we're happy to do that.
I might have mentioned last month, I'm not sure, that all of a sudden I saw in other towns the beginning of potholes, and I thought we were looking so great. Now, I still haven't noticed ours opening up, but boy, everywhere around, there was an article in the paper today, a letter, somebody said, oh, come on, we live in New England, get over the potholes, drive carefully, So it's a point, it's part of New England, but surely we can't last through this thaw, freeze, thaw, freeze, thaw, freeze. But it's amazing to me. The ones I saw the worst were right across the line in Massachusetts. Those were the first to go. But now, last few days, it seems like pretty much all around us they're popping up.
It is, and it gives us a chance to talk about how we're managing the town's roads in Simsbury. I think what you'll find is we do an excellent job of maintaining our roads. We have all of our roads on software programs, so we know which roads need to be upgraded and repaved on a regular basis, and we use that as a basis for our work projects at the start of the fiscal year. And I think that every town decides to keep their roads at whatever level they choose to fund. In Simsbury, fortunately, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and our residents have supported really keeping our roads in really excellent shape. So we're constantly maintaining our roads, regrading, and I think that's why you see our pothole experience is a lot better than many other towns, because when you start with good roads in good condition, then the opportunities for damage are less than if you start with roads that are in disrepair.
Well,
so we've really worked hard to keep our road budget at a level that maintains our road systems. It's actually cheaper for our taxpayers in the long run because we never let our roads get to the point where they need to be completely redone. We're always managing and repairing. And we constantly take a look at that program, and we've added additional money in next year's budget to maintain the roads as well.
Well, one of the things then I thought, oh, well, here's an opportunity to learn. Why are there potholes? Why are there not? And they had a little picture and what happens. And, it makes sense. If there's a crack or there's a porous spot in the surface, then things thaw, the water runs down there, then it gets cold again, so it freezes down there and expands and pushes the surface apart. And then I thought, like out in front of our house in the summer, they were out there putting, looks like just black liquid
Fill.
goop.
Right, exactly, that's
But on
right.
these little tiny cracks that I didn't realize were there. And I thought, oh, well, then that's part of it. That has to be
exactly
going on
right.
all the
So
time.
the more that you can keep your roads in good condition, the more wear you'll get out of it, and the less the least amount of money it takes to repave it. So that's our goal and that's our plan, and we've been fortunate that we've been able to implement that. So
Okay, mentioning then, how that impacts budget. And I apologize to whichever paper it was. I don't know if it was Valley Press or, there were so many other than dailies, other than the Current right now. But I thought it was it was an interview of you on the budget. I thought it was quite comprehensive. And then I thought, I think that you're offering a lot of good detail. It left some questions in my mind. And I thought, it's a shame if other readers don't stick with this because, not like I am, certainly not, on top of things all the time, but I know enough to think and ask questions, and then I thought, well, it's a dynamic process, and as we've talked before, the Board of Finance is the one that really ends up having control over the budget. And there's a whole process of meetings that the public is invited to for each segment of the budget that you all, the selectmen and you, participate in. And people who are in charge, and staff in charge of that, they explain things, they go down line item. And I think the people who show up are people for the ones where they have a special interest, because we'd have to be you to keep up with all of it. Can't do that. So in there, though, I was a little puzzled because when we talked last month, we had talked about a specific and minimal increase in the budget. But then it looked like that percentage had gone up a little bit, and then it was, I think, it seemed, correct me where I'm wrong, I thought, okay, well, what happened then? You, working with all these people, presented the budget to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen then possibly, some of them wanted some things reinstated. So then there was a question of whether to do that or not, and it sounded to me like the decision was, let's talk with the Board of Finance first so we don't end up in an unnecessarily back and forth tussle. Yes, no, what's wrong about that?
Great, Jerry, you did a great job. And anyone who lives in Simsbury should be involved. I know people are busy and there's a lot on everyone's plate, and that's why they elect a First Selectman and a Board of Selectmen and a Board of Finance to hopefully manage the budget responsibly, and hopefully that's what we're doing, and we'll send that to referendum. So between now and May, when the budget goes to referendum, it's all about the budget. And my job is to put forward a budget that's responsible. And over the last 6 years, the budgets that I've presented have actually been lower than earlier budgets. And that's been through a lot of hard work with our staff, been through a lot of givebacks, through wage freezes, through a lot of regionalizing some services, consolidating some services with the Board of Ed. So I think this year, when I entered the budget process, I felt very strongly that the town, that the mill rate, the town taxes should not go up.
Right.
And that is tricky because the First Selectman and the Board of Selectmen don't set the tax rate. And I think people maybe don't realize, or maybe because in some towns the mayor and the council
Right,
set
right.
the mill rate, and in Simsbury, it's not at all. So our job, my job, is to bring forward a budget on town services, which is really only 25 cents of every dollar in
Right.
taxes. And then the Board of Ed does the same. They're about 75 cents or
Yeah,
so
yeah.
on every dollar paid. And then it's up to the job of the Board of Finance to say, can we afford these two budgets, and what will be the tax rate? This year we did something a little different. You know, I think that with the revaluation, I think folks in Simsbury felt our mill rate was out of whack with our neighboring towns. We were concerned about that. I was concerned about that. So we met early on with the Board of Finance and said, we need to really enter this budget discussion saying our commitment is not to raise taxes. What do we need to do that? And I think that was a very different process than what we've had in the past. And I think it was very important because we all started with the same goal, and that
Okay.
was we are not raising taxes this year. I think that will send a strong message to our residents that we want them to be able to live here and still get quality services,
but-
and to our business community as well.
Yeah, and it just maybe in a little more layman terms, say again what you just said, because while the budget, each of them are going up a little over 1%, maybe. But because the mill rate will be something different, the taxes individuals will be paying will be no more than they
Right.
have
So what
been paying.
happens is when we set the tax rate, when the Board of Finance sets the tax rate, they look at a number of factors. What are the budgets? What's the revenue that the town is receiving? This year, for the first time since 2010, all of our economic developments have started to pay off. So we've experienced a grand list growth for the first time since 2010. And that is very significant because that means that people are moving into our community. That means that business is growing. That means that the downtown studies to attract business has done exactly that.
Yep.
We're seeing apartments being built. We saw Millwright's restaurant renovated. We've seen the addition of the 24-hour health urgent care center. We will shortly see shovels in the ground for a multiple sclerosis housing,
Yeah.
which is the first of its kind in New England. So when you look at all those factors, what do the budgets have to stay at in order for taxes not to go up? And that's the conversation that we're in right now. I presented a very lean budget to the Board of Selectmen. They agreed with some things and they disagreed with some things. When we
What were
worked,
the kind of things they wanted added in?
well, first thing that we identified after the budgets came in is that we've been working for the last 6 years to consolidate both the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen insurance carriers under one carrier.
Okay.
And not to make things complicated, but over the years, the town has a number of different bargaining units, the Board of Ed has a number of different bargaining units, and the town was using a number of different insurance carriers. 6 years ago, we identified that if we could consolidate under one carrier, we could go out to bid, and because of the numbers, we could experience some savings. Problem was, we couldn't do that until we negotiated with our employees to
Okay.
agree to the carriers. And to our credit of our employees, both on the town side and the education side, they agreed to the changes. And this year, for the first time, we're saving $600,000 by consolidating carriers.
Oh, that's great.
So that's a significant amount of money. So we started with our budgets, and then we were able to back out those savings on both the town budgets and the Board of Ed. Now, what we didn't want to do is fill that savings up with new spending.
Right, right.
So we made a conscious decision not to do that. However, we did need to add back increases in our salt budget,
Yeah.
increases in our negotiated contracts, increases in some of the service and utilities. There were some tough choices that the board had to make. One was we had a police officer vacancy that would come up in
that's right.
July,
That was in the
and in order to keep the budget below, I was recommending not filling that and not filling a couple other positions that were going to become vacant, and hiring and trading some of those for hiring of a technology person so that we can get Simsbury, a lot more of Simsbury's information online. And the library had recommended adding a teen librarian. Through the insurance savings, we were able to add back the officer position, which I think was a consensus and unanimously agreed to. We were able to add back some small amounts for some of the other departments. We were able to add back a little bit of savings in public works for custodial help that we had eliminated. So the bottom line was we were able to come in within our budget that will not raise taxes, and we're very proud of that. We're also talking with the Board of Ed, working very closely with them because we've added an additional school resource officer. And the question in consultation with them is it appropriate for the town and the school to share that expense since the officer is in schools 9 months of the year? And so we're having great discussions with that. So great conversation. We had great public input. From now until May, we'll have a number of opportunities for the public to comment, for our residents to comment. We have a Board of Selectmen presentation to the Board of Finance, a Board of Ed presentation, and then a public hearing on April 10th. So that's a really good venue for folks to come out and tell us how we're doing and whether you agree with us that taxes shouldn't go up. And if not, then what choices do we make as a community?
Oh, no,
for
raise
programs
those
and
taxes.
services?
Come on, Mary.
Well, it's been frustrating because the town has really held the line over the last 6 years, and yet we get blamed for raising taxes. And it's frustrating for me as the chief elected official
Right.
because I don't control the entire budget. I
Right.
control a piece of it, and I think we've set a great example by not raising the budget.
Sure.
But it's this year we took a different approach and got a consensus that we didn't want to raise taxes.
It
So-
seems to me, and maybe it is just because it seems like already you're further along in the process than other years. And I don't know that it started earlier. I know it starts almost after the one budget is passed. But I have a sense there's more, what do I want to say? Agreement ahead of time
I think
in all of
there
the
was
different elements.
there was certainly more agreement. There was with Peter Ascom as chair and Nick Mason as vice chair, two veteran members of the Board of
Yeah.
Finance, and with the addition of Linda Schofield on the board. I think Linda brought her experience at the state capitol and her analytical skills about what is the cost-benefit analysis of what we're doing. I think we had that discussion of the goal very early.
Yeah.
And I think that's made a difference this year because we all agreed raising taxes was not something that we wanted to do. So hope people participate in the process. It's we think that because of the tremendous number of volunteers that we have in our community, we're able to look to our volunteers to supplement some of the services. We have a great group of seniors who volunteer at the town hall every day, and that was a position we formerly paid for a full-time person. So, we rely a lot on our volunteers in our community to help make it a great community without spending the additional dollars, and that's really the only way we could do it.
Somebody asked me the other day, are there engineers on staff in the town? I said, well, yeah. Like Rich Sawitsky was like the Pope of engineers. Well, he's gone, and I don't know if that position stayed intact with the range of possibilities. And then I knew there were some that reported to Rich that had specific skills, like drafting pipes or this or that or whatever. But I'm really out of touch with that organization now, and I always sort of thought of, when I thought of engineer, I always thought of Rich. Now, I know someone else that he was helping get somebody on board. Now, was that a direct replacement, or was the job description changed?
No, actually, it's a really exciting time for the town because we've always been fortunate to have some really great professional, long-term, long-serving employees.
Yeah.
And we've had a number of folks retiring, which after 30 years. And so it's been a really busy year trying to fill those positions with great folks. And we did find an engineer, Jeff Shea, who came from the town of Canton. And so he's familiar. We've worked together on projects before, and he is our new town engineer, and he's really done a great job of just filling right in and taking right over. We have a new superintendent of the Water Pollution Control Authority, so if you have a sewer,
Which one is that?
Tony Piazza.
And what
he
is his
came
job?
to us, Water Pollution Control Authority. And
Oh,
perhaps,
yeah. But that was where Wally was for years, right?
and Jim Clifton. was fill that spot.
Yeah.
And
No,
probably
they were
the most
great.
most important position the town has, which is our financial director with our chief financial officer. We just filled that position with Joe Mancini, who is a municipal, is an accountant and was a municipal
I don't know.
finance
There's
director.
an Italian thing
So,
going here.
I don't know, but, and Joe
What
will
was her
start.
name before you were married?
Oh, well.
Come on. what was her name?
Messina. So there you go. So, but it's great to have, we're looking forward to having Joe and Sean Kimball, who is our risk manager and human resource personnel, has filled that vacancy in the interim and has done a great job. So, those are the key positions that you don't see that are probably the most important in the town.
Right.
Because those are the folks that keep us out of trouble and where our most exposure is. So if you have a very strong personnel department, if you have a very strong risk management department, and a very strong fiscal controls and tight financial controls, well, the town is going to be, we can sleep at night. Because those are the areas that the town, most towns have the most exposure. So we want to make sure that we have our internal controls tight, that we make sure that we are following all state and federal laws, to make sure that our risk management, our workers' comp, all of those training of our staff, all the things that you don't see
but have to
behind
go
the
on
scenes,
constantly.
that have to
They're the
protect the
foundation.
town.
Yeah.
And so that's been a busy year filling all those key vacancies, and we're really excited. We put a really great team together.
Okay,
So.
good. That's good to know. This just came up to my mind. It's really unfair to ask you this because there's no reason you should know anything about this. It first happened, we got a new car a couple of years ago, and periodically driving through town, the light would come on. It took me hours going through the book. The books now are this big, it's like, what was that? TMA. TMA. And the index doesn't list anything as TMA. Finding it in there, tire maintenance alert. And, okay, well, so I look at my tires, they seem fine. I check the air pressure, that's fine. So it would come and go. And I took it into the dealer for regular maintenance, and I said, so should I just ignore this? What's happening? Well, he said, well, this is what I'll try first. And he replaced the, where the valve sticks out, the caps on them with plastic caps. I don't know what the others were. He gave them to me. There's some sort of metal. And then he said, do you by any chance live near a radio tower, or does this happen when? I said, well, actually, I live like a block and a half from the police tower in town. He said, does it ever happen when you're passing by there? I said, he said, well, I only mention it because that can
Really? No, I'm
trigger
not aware
the
of that.
sensor through these type of caps. So then we changed the caps, and then it happened only once after that, not here.
Okay.
That was in Guilford. And it hasn't happened again. But the other thing is I had moved my FM receiver into the room where we usually have breakfast so you can hear the FM news. And all of a sudden, and they go along and then, you're not. Well, that receiver had been dropped when we moved one, so I thought it's that. So I got a different receiver. Same thing happened. So I went back, and they said, what kind of antenna are you using? I said, well, the kind of I was using, like this. I said, maybe what you need is an electronic antenna, which tends to balance the signal both ways, strengthen or diminish.
Or diminish. Well, it's good to know.
But every once in a while, it happens. And then I sort of move it and relocate it anyway. So I'm curious, maybe we should ask Chief Ingvardsson if people live in that area, do those transmissions.
No, we get a lot of folks calling, but that's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah, this is
a lot of issues, but that's the first I've heard of that issue.
It's not there for NSA, is it?
Not that they told
I don't know.
me.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Nobody told me about that. Well, the other thing we were talking about when I was talking to Mickey about the senior center, and she was kind of like surprised I didn't know, and you kind of had the same reaction, and that is, And I need to check into it. I need to, oh, I am a senior, by the way, learn a little more about what they do. But they have well, you tell me, a lunch, right? A weekly lunch here at the senior center?
Yes, and folks could come down. I mean, the senior center is very active. I mean, it's not as it used to be where there's, you come down and you sit around. There's Wii bowling, there's trips, there's really great lunches. The purpose is to socialize and to get our folks out and to meet each other. And so every Wednesday at Eno, there's a lunch. You just need to sign up because sometimes they're overbooked and come down. And I think it's
So how does one
great.
find out what all is available? Just come down and talk to the person who's
Come down, the
volunteering?
senior communicator online. We can go onto the
Okay.
Simsbury website and you can check out our programs. There's exercise programs, there's ceramic programs, there's speaking programs, there's trips, there's lunches.
Okay.
There's a lot happening in town. And it's not just, our program's not just limited to the senior center. We have programs at the library, we have programs for the Parks and Recreation Department. So there's always something happening in town. But I think the senior center does a great job of really, we've noticed a lot of folks have moved to Simsbury to be with a son or a daughter.
Yeah.
And they're relocated and they don't know anyone, and they, it's a great place to just come and meet new people.
Parking lot's always full.
Terrific. Parking lot's always full.
So where do they go? Where's the senior center going to be?
So one of the, as we age and we're active.
What location though?
Well, so we're looking long term
We gotta go
for
fast.
a
We're gonna run out of
all
time
right,
here. Okay.
for a new senior center, and the recommendation will come to the Board of Selectmen for a new building somewhere in town. I think folks were looking at the option of renovating Eno Hall,
Yeah.
and whether that would work. And the recommendation of the subcommittee was retrofitting an older building wouldn't work for the new population of seniors. And so we'll take a look at that recommendation, evaluate some sites, and put some cost to it, and then have some public comment. So we hope to do that within the next few weeks.
Okay, well,
just to have. Before we leave, just make sure everybody puts May on their calendar. A lot happening in May. We talked about the budget hearings.
Yeah.
Talked about the Simsbury triathlon.
We didn't talk about that.
We didn't.
And we don't have time to talk about
Which
it.
is, we'll talk about that next month.
Oh,
but
okay.
we're trying to make Simsbury, as part of our economic development plan, to make Simsbury the place for all things recreation. So biking, running, walking.
So you're
And
competing,
this will be
right?
the first triathlon. Oh, I got to start.
I
getting
know you
ready.
do your bikes. That's
Yeah.
just how you got to.
And May is Bike
then.
Month, National Bike Month, so there'll be plenty of things happening on the
Oh,
trails.
be still my heart. I'm so excited.
No, lots
It'll be too
happening in the
busy
month
here.
of May. It'll be a busy, busy time.
Mary, thank you once again so
Thank you,
much coming
Jerry.
out on this dreary day.
Good to see
and
you.
Thank all of you, and we'll see you again next month on State of the Town.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.